welcome to another edition of our Create the Ripple podcast. I'm super excited for my guest this morning. He and I, well, how do I put this, Earl? Because I would say we kind of go back, but it's not just me. It's a family tie as well. So my guest this morning is very much a local entrepreneur. We were having some fun chit-chatting before we started this episode about small towns, because both Earl and I grew up in a small town. But before we digress too far, Earl, I'd love it if you would just come on and share with our listeners and our viewers who you are and sort of where you got started. And that'll give people sort of a context. And then we can kind of jump into where we had just left off before we hit the record button about small towns and how we got here.
Sounds good. Yeah, we go way back. Well, your family and I do.
Yeah.
Your mom and dad, Kevin and Mary Ellen, known for several years. So yeah, I come from, like I was saying, I come from a smaller town than even yourself. Lavoie is bigger than Sprucefield, Alberta. Sprucefield, Alberta was Mom and Dad's country store for 21 years, north of West Setna on the way to Long Lake, Alberta. What I do is specialize in group benefits. We call ourselves specialists. Some people call us brokers. Some people have other names for us, consultants, and so on. So that's my area of expertise, and also taught at MacEwan for 11 years in group benefits and human resources.
I did not know that. I mean, I think we talked about it before that you had done some work, but that's quite cool. Okay, awesome. So yeah, Earl and my parents actually attended the same Bible school together. So that's how far back it goes. And I remember when we met at a networking event, and you put two and two together much faster than I did. And here's your dad, Kevin Smiley. And I was like, he is. Which, to be honest, Earl, is something I've often talked about on my podcast, that I have to be careful, because it doesn't matter where I go. People either know my dad or my grandfather or my mother. So, I like to joke that it keeps me pretty honest, because it never fails to, get back. And I enjoy it when dad will give me a call and said, hey, you were here today. And I'll say, who called you and told you where I was today? But
yeah, and you've got a couple provinces covered with your mom coming from Kelowna.
I do.
Her dad was a baker, so
yes.
Used to get up early mornings.
Out of Stettler, yeah, which was kind of neat to see how we span, like you say, a few provinces. And isn't it interesting how, way leads on to way? So what made you decide, I guess, how did you get into, I guess, Bible school first, and then what led you into Edmonton? That's always an interesting conversation, right? How did you get from there to here?
A couple steps in between. So I took my first years of studies of my business degree at Red Deer College, way back when it was probably the size of most high schools. Finished high school in Ponoka, so Red Deer College was a great choice. I could live there much less costly than Edmonton, so took my first years of my business degree there. Then decided I wanted to do something different, so took a year out to go to Bible school, where I met your mom and dad. It was a one-year program. It was modular learning, so you would take a course for a certain amount of time with one instructor, and then you move on to the next module, which was actually, I found, a great way of learning. And the first time I taught at MacEwan was pretty much modular learning, because we crammed 6 hours of instruction into each week and finished the course in a record amount of time. Then I just decided to continue my education, came up to Edmonton from Calgary, where I met your mom and dad. So Calgary to Edmonton, and finished my business degree at the University of Alberta, majoring in marketing and HR, which was called organizational theory back in the old days.
Oh, interesting. I am learning so much in this podcast. I tell people all the time, like, yes, I love that I get to share the guests, but honestly, I feel like the one who gets the most value of doing these interviews is usually me. So that's interesting. So business and HR. How did you get into the insurance? Because that's how you and I met, was networking for the insurance, or benefits, as you talk about.
Yeah, for sure. So coming out of the University of Alberta, got interviewed by multiple organizations such as RBC, several of the large accounting firms, got offers to be a banker, to be an accountant, interviewed by John Deere, and flew to a few different places, including London, Ontario, interviewed by London Life, flew to Waterloo, Ontario, interviewed by Mutual Life of Canada, which is now Sun Life at that time. So then joined Mutual Life and was there for a while. So my experience in industry goes way back to right out of university days. And more recently, you mentioned meeting through networking, Candice. I think a lot of my business acumen comes from my father, who had that store that you see in my background.
I love it. I love that you've left that up there. That's so cool. Yep.
So small store, small town, small business, very careful about, expenses, revenue, money coming in, money going out. My father, that was probably his fifth business venture, including farming, including running a livery stable, which was a boarding place for animals, including being a mechanic, including working at a large oil and gas refinery by Devon, and then ending up in Sprucefield, Alberta, where they had the store for the record amount of years, 21 years. And the only reason we moved was because my dad's health was failing, and we went back to where Mom and Dad had met, which is Ponoka, Alberta, and a lot of relatives there to this day.
Wow. So it sounds like then, your background is not dissimilar to mine, right? I would say that one of the reasons why I'm an entrepreneur is because I watched, Grandpa had a bus company, right? So he drove kids around on a school bus, which was great because, of course, for the 4 years I did go to school, he was my bus driver, which was great. Dad did farming, and Mom has always been a nurse, but they always had, part-time things, right? They tried echinacea, they tried ostriches, all of which were very interesting things to try. But it's interesting how, someone asked me the other day, they're like, well, what if you fail? I was like, oh, that's just part of the game. Like, you try and then you see and then go from there. So it sounds like your dad had a bit of that experience and certainly had an impact on what you've done now in getting into, I guess have you been self-employed then your whole career, or did you work for someone for a season?
After university and after that, I worked for some larger corporations such as Laidlaw Waste Systems, TransAlta. I worked in the cellular industry for a while, and then through a series of a couple situations where Laidlaw Waste Systems was sold to a large company, which is now Waste Management. So that career ended rather suddenly. Worked in the cellular industry for about a year, got a great offer from TransAlta, a large utility. We were selling energy efficient lighting and power before it was common to do that. Just got deregulated, so just started doing that. They had TransAlta hired 22 of us across Alberta to do this project. And 1 year later, that whole department was shut down. So at that point, I said, I need to work for myself. I need to have a little more control over my own destiny, over my own future. And so started Optimax Benefits at that time. And the rest is history. The first number of years were tough. They were hard work, lots of work. And I think that's one lesson that I've learned for myself anyway. It hasn't come easy. And same with my father, going through many different things. His farm got dried out, no crops. Moved to northern Saskatchewan. His livery barn burned down. His mechanics career ended with him having some monoxide poisoning twice. Had to get out of there. So it's often failure that teaches us what to do better and how to be better people too. And so this has been an uphill climb for many years, and 22 years later, we're still here and still in business, and we'll be here after the pandemic as well.
And that's powerful. I love that, and I guess for our listeners, that's I think really the first nugget to take away from this particular podcast, that failure, as you said, is often what leads you to something better. And I think that that's true. I mean, I don't have nearly the career that you do, but if I look back, I go, well, I know that didn't work, but because that didn't work, that led me to here, and because of that, I know where I'm headed. So that's very interesting. I hadn't realized that you had started. Did you start with partners, or was the insurance something that had always drawn you? What sort of drew you to that? You and I had talked before we hit the record button that for you, Community is important. I think for those of us that grow up in a small town with close-knit family connections like you and I share, it's kind of natural for us to always have an eye on the neighbors, right?
Right.
At least always has been for me. I can remember not this fall, but the fall before, it was really hard for the farmers to get the crops off. And one of the most powerful things for me was just being out there and watching when one farmer would finish with his combine, literally lift it up, empty it out, and go across the field and just start, helping somebody else out. That's not something that you necessarily understand or grasp the full concept unless you grow up in those spaces where you realize other people are part of your success. Like you need them. You need to be kind to people because I laugh all the time. I'm like, the reason Canadians are so polite is it gets really cold up here. So if you're rude to somebody, they might be the one who pulls up beside you to jumpstart your car. So if you were rude, they may not help. So you got into a huge helping industry as far as I see it,
Yeah,
in terms of benefits. So talk me through that decision.
for sure. It, it, it went back to some of my roots being right out of university, seeing what owning a small business can be,
Mm-hmm.
and that you do have control over it. You have to work hard, probably put in 7 day weeks, 60 to 70 hours a week initially.
Yeah.
And that lasted for quite a while. So I wanted something that would last long term. People talk about residual income. Our industry, part of it is residual, depending which part of it you work in. The part we work in does build up over time, creates a residual income. There are times when I haven't been able to work in the business. So for one of which we can talk about at maybe a future time.
Mm-hmm.
Illness took me away from the business for a while, but the
Okay.
business continued without me and just kept going and
Mm-hmm.
producing an income, even though I wasn't there. So that's true residual income. The main thing, though, were the independence, the freedom, just saying if have to take time off to do something with our children, take time off to do something with my wife, the family, I could do that. But also freedom to earn what you want to earn, freedom to do what you want to do. A lot of people say, I want freedom, but they don't want to put in the effort to get there. So I think that's a big lesson for me is work hard, really hard. And if you do the right things, we often get distracted and go off and do other things. So if you work hard and do the right things, you will succeed. For me, it wasn't overnight success. People say that you're at this point, but it took a long time to get to that point.
Well, again, really powerful stuff. And I think I agree. I know I agree. Having known, the long hours, and there's lots of memes out there on Facebook, right? Like we'll live in a way that people can't fathom, but then we get a life that they can only imagine. And I think that's been true. A lot of what we end up doing as entrepreneurs is we don't count the hours, right? Like I love when someone says, well, how many hours you work? I'm like, I don't count because I think I'd be discouraged. But I've chosen a career that I enjoy doing. And so for me, there's an enjoyment in the working hard. And I like that you said that about, work hard and work really hard. Because growing up on a farm, that was just part of the process, right? You got up, you went outside, you did chores. We didn't earn allowance for chores. That was just being part of the family. So you had a sense of pride of doing a good job, and you had to do a good job. At least I did, because grandpa would inspect it. And if it wasn't done right, you had to do it again. So you learn to just do things once and do them well and take some pride in that. And, play happened after the work, and in seasons like springtime when you had to get the crops in a certain window of time, and harvest time, you just worked until the job was done. You didn't, you told friends, can't see you till harvest is done, and everybody else got it because they were in the same space. And I think that kind of an upbringing certainly set me up for this, because even in my business, I just finished an incredible month, and it was work. And I was sitting there hanging out with my little human, which, is a huge reason about why I do what I do. So I have the time, freedom to be present, to raise her, educate her, be present in her life in crucial years of her upbringing. And, was still working while we were doing a gingerbread house. Why? Because it was time to work. The harvest was coming in. And yeah, so I love how you brought that up. I think that's important for people, especially when they get into this entrepreneur space. And then, I mean, now it's not an easy time out there. And one of the women we interviewed for our magazine, Create the Ripple magazine, of which you are a part of, thank you for that, talked about that she started her business in the last dip in the economy. And I thought it was kind of cute the way she said it. She was like, we started this last dip. We'll get through this one. You know, we're going to tighten up our belts a little bit and pull up our socks a little bit and work a few more hours, and we're going to get through this. And I really like that attitude. And I hear that sense coming from you, like being there, done that, got the t-shirt, here's how we get through it. And I think right now, you know, for some of the, maybe the younger entrepreneurs or those who maybe are having a discouraging moment, that might be good to hear, right? Just sort of dig your heels in and you're going to be okay. I know we'd want to talk a little bit about, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, you're right about certain things to do. So we were overwhelmed when the pandemic hit, like
yes,
a lot of people. And we were hearing from our clients that, you know, we don't know what to do. We're not sure what's going on. So we made a decision to proactively phone each of our clients and say,
wow,
you know, we're here. What can we do for you? How can we help you? We'll walk you through this. So we had a lot of adjustment to benefit plans, not a lot of cancellations. We had some corporations, unfortunately, go out of business because of COVID-19. But a lot of them we spent a lot of time on the phone with, just sort of counseling them through the situation. These are your different options. These are things you can do. And how can we help you? What do you need help with? And so we were able to, with the insurance companies, adjust their plans, change them, make them more affordable for them. And through that process, we also found a lot of other companies also wanting to adjust their costs. So we had a huge amount of activity for probably 2 months, from March, April into May and June. And we're still having some activity of adjusting plans. And people want to hear from you. Your clients want to hear from you. They want to know you're there. You want to know you care. And I think maybe that's where we're going to go next. Is you talked about a sense of community. When we lived in that little house there,
I love it.
you talked about neighbors. Our neighbors were probably the closest one was Barry Kosminski was one of my good friends. Actually, almost made it to. He played baseball for Canada. He was a pitcher.
Oh, cool.
He almost made it to the big leagues until he injured his arm. But our neighbors were probably 20 miles around, up to Boyle, Smoky Lake, all these little towns, Hollow Lake, that nobody's heard of, Thorhill, Wasatna, Radway, Warspite, and all these little towns in that area. You had friends and you had neighbors in all those little communities. So the sense of community was hugely important. Yes, people would do for other people as much as they could. If you had a problem and you needed somebody to help with something, the whole community would come, like building the barn, helping repair something, people would be there. So that's a great thing about people caring and about the sense of community.
I hope you're enjoying the show. I know I am. I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about an amazing product that is making such a difference in my life. This is 36-year-old skin. Yes, I'm wearing a teeny tiny bit of foundation and some mascara and some eyeliner, but that's it. I do not go into the deep makeup world. I'm too much of a plant-based hippie, for lack of a better word, to get into it. However, I've absolutely been loving my experience on the Modere products, especially their collagen. It's liquid collagen made from chicken sternums. It's got 7 international patents, and it's clean. And frankly, a lot of the collagen products out there include things like hooves and noses and byproducts. And I was like, no, thank you. So when I discovered this one, even though I'm a vegan, I prefer a plant-based lifestyle, I recognize that this collagen, my body would recognize it. And if it recognizes it, it's going to use it. Simple spoonful in the morning, spoonful at night. It's making a huge difference, not only in my skin, which, to be honest, I completely love, but I also in my nails and in my eyelashes, which I love. So I want to give you a little tip. talk to me about this. I can get you a referral code for being a part of my network, which will save you $10 on your first order. The products are very comparable. It's not an MLM. It's simply an affiliate program. So I love to do that. And then whatever mascara you choose to use, add a drop or two of lavender. This company no longer exists, but they're super awesome. And I know there's a number of great oil companies out there. So get in touch with your favorite oil rep person, and put a drop of lavender in your mascara. Combine that with my liquid collagen, and you are absolutely going to love the way that your eyelashes look. Did you know that one of the reasons your eyelashes break and fall apart when you're older is because there are teeny tiny little bugs that live in your hair and in your eyebrows, and they fall onto your eyelashes and they eat them. Now, granted, we kind of need these things that live on our skin and our bodies for our bodies to function the best. However, if you're like me, you want a really great set of eyelashes. So hopefully that helps. I will make sure to tag the products down below. And without any further ado, let's get back to our show.
And I think hearing from you, I know again for myself, that's just sort of something that's come natural. I can remember early in my networking career, and I had done some referrals for somebody, and they said, "Are you for real? Like, I've never met anybody that's just got this attitude of I'll give it to you. If I've got it, I'll give it to you." And it wasn't until that moment that I realized that it's a foreign concept for a lot of people. Right? Nothing wrong with that if it's not, second nature. It's just the way that we had, were nurtured when we grew up, that was important, right?
Yes.
And how that has an impact on not only the careers I think we choose, but also how we act in our businesses. Now, you were talking before this, I didn't even know this until we started chatting, but today is a big day about giving and giving back. And so I'd love it if you could, talk about that, because I know that's near and dear to your heart. So I'd love for you to take some time and share that.
For sure. We have in our practice, we've developed relationships with a lot of not-for-profit and charity clients.
Mm-hmm.
And today is Giving Tuesday. So my inbox has been filled with several emails saying it's Giving Tuesday. You can double up your whatever you're giving.
Mm-hmm.
We have something that's going to double it up today. So that's just fantastic to hear that if you give $100, it's $200 to the organization. So yeah, caring for the community, like you say, giving back out of what you have. Sometimes you don't have a lot. I've been there several times, and you just give of something that you can give.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you said, right? It doesn't have to be a lot. And sometimes, at least what I have seen, especially through this, I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts and using this time when we can't necessarily go out and meet the way we used to, as an opportunity to grow and expand. And sometimes the people who seem to have the least are usually the happiest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a minimalist, so that makes absolute sense. The more I let go of, the happier I am. And one of the things I've certainly seen is that, give. And there's a lot of people who are really struggling this season. And the giving doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can be time. It can be energy. I've made a few posts about learning how to smile with our eyes. That's important. I mean, my last name's Smiley, so let's get real, right? Like, I've been giving smiles for forever, and discovering that they can make a huge impact in other people's days. And looking the clerk in the eye as they're packing their groceries, through the masks, through the whatever, and having that moment of human connection to be like, I see you, thank you, and making time to do that smile. And I think it's great that we can talk about the giving today, because that's huge when we can double it up and double down, right after Cyber Monday, and we've all been spending money.
Yeah,
So
if you have any left after Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Right, I do. I don't, you won't find me online, but for me, it's all about supporting local, right? Not that I won't, support Amazon when I need to, but if I can find it locally, I'm going to certainly try, especially right now. I think when we vote with our dollars, it has a big impact. So we had talked about these themes of caring and small towns. And I guess, now I think would be a great time if there was a message or a thought you wanted to leave with our listeners. Certainly we're going to be sharing this with my network and yours and some of the entrepreneurs. That's a huge part of people who follow me anyway. Is what would be that message be that they can, take forward? I mean, we're still in this weird space and time, and it won't last forever, but I guess what's next, and from your vantage point.
I think some of the things you just said resonate with me. Be kind. That hello in the morning, that good morning might be the only thing positive that person hears during the day. And the smile, you mentioned that. I have a smiling face pointing at me right now, reminding me to smile. So the smile is great. Laughing a little bit. People initially, I think everything's so serious, and it's still so serious. But, cheer up their day a bit. Bring the smile, bring the positivity, be kind, be fair. There's so much negativity out there. You listen to the news, which I limit my intake of news. I just have to, otherwise it would overwhelm me, and I know it overwhelms others. So combat the negativity with something positive. Like you say, the eyes. I think, if you can make eye contact with somebody, and they're not looking down. So the eyes are, the way into a person's soul. Sometimes it's said, but those key things of kindness, smiling, being positive, being uplifting, being encouraging. Those are things we can all do. They don't cost anything. And they are, like you said, that's one way to give back and give something to people, even though you might not have a lot of financial resources at this time.
I've seen a lot of Facebook posts recently where people say, hey, ask for it, and if I've got it, I'll share it with you. And I love those. A lot of them are in some of those closed groups. But it's been amazing to watch that. And I was scrolling through one the other day, and someone said, I have a website. I want to make sure the copy is good. And I was like, oh, I love writing copy. Sure. So sent her a message, and she was blown away. And I was just like, that's fun, right? Like and it didn't cost me anything. Right. And so I think if people are, at home and they don't know what to do, and it's stressful, don't get me wrong. I mean, my life turned upside down beginning of this year with our coming home, and that had an impact on relationships and everything else that's going on. And certainly the stress level has been much, much higher, but there's a lot of small businesses that support that. Like, I mean, I went to go see an acupuncturist yesterday. I've been making sure that I can go to see the chiropractor and massage, because I know they're small business owners, B, benefits, right? And C, it's continuing to make sure that I'm managing my self-care. And so that's been something I've been telling people, like, maybe you can't do all of them, but see what you can do. And I think one of the biggest nuggets for me, Earl, out of this particular conversation between you and I, is how you handled the shift and the change. And I think that's going to be a defining factor about which businesses make it and which ones don't. Can they pivot fast enough? Can they make the adjustments? Did they have enough rainy day set aside, right? That's a huge, impact. But you made the time to call everybody. And I think that is something, at least, that I've realized through COVID, certainly before, but post, as things kind of got crazy, I found that because my business shifted, and I think a lot of people's have, I had more time. And rather than reflect on the time that wasn't being spent dealing with what I had been, it was an opportunity for me to reach out and email or call, like you said, old clients. And I hadn't really thought about it till now, but I think it's had an impact on how I've moved through COVID. So maybe for someone who's listening in and they're feeling like they're twiddling their thumbs, that might be an opportunity for them, is find a way to reach out to those people, even if it's just to say, hey, we've appreciated doing business with you, and maybe you can't do business with us right now, but we want you to know that we're still here, and we appreciate what you've done so that we can be here. And the impact of that, because it sounds like you being able to serve the people in that way has had a huge impact on COVID, or your COVID experience, right? In terms of it being more positive than negative.
Yes, for sure. It does break my heart to see some of our employers lay off a third or more of their workforce. One of our long-term clients, a small machine shop in South Edmonton, is just on the edge. It's such a good conversation, though. They've been clients for several years. And one of the owners said, you know, we have to cancel our benefits. He said, we just can't afford them. And he said, but we'll be back. We'll be back and we'll be calling you. So just that was so encouraging to me to hear him in the midst of his sorrows and saying, you know, we don't have enough money for all these types of things, saying, we'll be coming back, watch for us. And they will. They'll be back again. But yeah, those encouraging words, just saying, hey, we're here, we're thinking about you, how can we help you? And sometimes the help they need is maybe just somebody to listen to them and to hear them.
Yeah, I know that that's one of the reasons, or one of the driving forces of, you know, why I produced the magazine recently, is I felt, I mean, I've managed my social media feed for a while. I've got people in my world who enjoy, you know, watching the news and stuff. So I'm usually kept up to date. It's not hard to gather bite-sized pieces of information without having to submit to an entire news set or something like that, at least for me. But I was noticing that people were commenting that there was so much negativity on their news feeds. And this is not me saying, you know, be an ostrich and put your head in the sand. It's saying, what if we can counteract, you know, some of that negativity? And that was really where, you know, the Create the Ripple magazine was born from, where we said, look, we know times are tough. We're going to come together and we're going to create an intentional referral community. You can advertise in print. Oh, there goes my backdrop. And you can, it's not a real wall, everybody. You can advertise, you can be involved. And the idea really was then we have a ton of amazing posts and people that we can promote in a way that allows us to flood people's news feeds with something positive, and how people are moving through it, how people have moved through previous challenges. And so I know it was great when you had shared, you know, what you did. We said, this is a value add, and right, how can we add value to those around us? So yeah, it's been kind of an exciting time.
I think the first one, like you said, add value to is yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, you will have nothing to give to others. You'll be drained. Yeah. And there's so many things out there draining our energy, our time, our attention right now.
And they're not things we can necessarily escape, right? There's you know, I get to go upstairs and manage running a businesses, and being a full-time parent. That's just a challenge for a lot of people right now. You know, people who are facing, like you said, they have to let go of people and benefits and things that they probably enjoyed for a season. And let's hope it's a short season. So I guess we're coming sort of to the end of what we might want to share. Is there anything you'd like to leave with people? I mean, certainly I will make sure that your contact information and stuff is in the box, you know, below, so people can find you and follow you. And we want to make our conversation a more regular thing. I think it's important. As soon as I became an entrepreneur, benefits were something I made sure I got. Just didn't, you know, it's dad and that whole, you know, have you checked the tires? Have you made sure that you're safe and covered? But I think for a lot of people, at least what I've seen, is there's a misnomer about expenses and, you know, are they going to actually cover me when I need them, and that sort of thing. So I would love it if, as we start to wrap up, you could talk about that for maybe people that would like to, want to, but it just feels a little overwhelming right now to think about adding that. But something like COVID maybe made them realize, maybe I should have before now.
Yeah, for sure. I think benefits are one of the things that we don't think about until we have a situation happen. Like we need a certain medication, we need, our bodies are not doing well and they need massage, acupuncture, physio, chiropractic. They need some adjusting, which is so important to keep our bodies in alignment. Those types of things. And yeah, it doesn't cost that much. I think one of the things we've seen this year especially is the gig economy, as people call it. A lot of self-employed individuals, and they're saying, I can't afford it. It's something to really look at though, because there are affordable plans for one person just to cover some basic needs. There are a few options if it's just you, and or perhaps you and your family. So those are things that aren't a huge cost, but things that should be looked at, because they do provide for our physical needs, things like both medication and also the positive wellness prevention things like getting your body adjusted, getting it into alignment. And I know we couldn't see dentists for a while, but making sure your teeth are healthy, because poor teeth health is not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just some of the simple things that can be looked at, and we would certainly love to talk to anybody about any of the benefits that they want to look at and see if it fits for them. And if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think anybody who's listening in can tell that, if there's a concern about you being a, insurance salesman, it's probably not, who you are. And again, one of the reasons why we started the magazine is we focus more on the advertorial, so people tell a story about who they are or why they love a particular product or what's in it, that sort of thing. So we add the human element, right? Human first, marketer second. I think that's so important, and why I like to do these podcasts. I'm so blessed by my network. I need, well, this, the other day I messaged you and I said, by the way, do you have a plumber? And that's a powerful piece, right? Because we had a need and the stress level was up to here. And it's just great to know I can literally grab my phone and I can go to a networker like yourself with a huge network and say, who do you know that you can trust? Because I need help right now. And I think that's a huge part of at least I'm trying to do right now, is say, hey, it's bad out there, but it's not going to be as bad if we lean into the community. I think that's small town coming out, right? Like you said, if you got to build a barn, then if everybody shows up, it's done in a day. And I've seen those. It's crazy, right? Or, like I said earlier in the podcast, Dad needed to get the crop off. We had at least 3 more days and the rain was coming. Right? And 2 guys just picked up with their combines and you looked out in the field and there was 3 of them. We got it off. Like it was done. And, they don't ask for any payment. They're just happy to be there. And it's right. Like I get goosebumps every time I talk about it. And I think that, yeah, COVID's bad, but I think it is an opportunity for us to remember that we're human and we need each other, and now more than ever. So yeah. Anything else you want to share, Earl? If not, I feel like we've covered a lot of points.
Yes.
I was checking my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. I wrote down that quote about failure. That's a good one. I think that's going to be the tagline for this. And we'll have to.
Someone said, and I don't know who it was, but just so there's nobody specifically to quote, but and I failed at several things. You can fail a lot of things, but that doesn't make you a failure. I think we brand ourselves as failures, and that's a mistake. We all fail at something. We're all not good at something. And, don't call yourself a failure. Just admit your failures, admit your mistakes,
and learn
from them, and grow and go on.
Well, and I think a lot of knowing what you don't want helps you know what you do want. And we have a lot of opportunities, and like you had mentioned, there's a lot of distractions, and so it's really easy in your business to make a wrong choice that looks like an opportunity. It turns out to be a distraction. Sometimes you recover from those, sometimes you can't. For a lot of people, they make decisions about what they want to do with their lives when they're 17 years old, right? They're going into university and they get a degree and they work in it for a few years and feel like a failure for changing their mind. Your 17-year-old self made that decision, and your 36-year-old self, your 50-year-old self, your 60-year-old self might make a different decision based on results. That's not a failure. That's you gathering more information and making a different choice. Maybe the business you've got isn't COVID proof, but maybe you've been introduced to one that is, and you can take what you learned in that one and reset, restart, make different choices. So I like how you say that. I think reframing failures is crucial to being a successful entrepreneur, and making tough calls, having conversations that matter. They're not usually the easy ones. So
that's right.
Cool. All right. Well, if you have enjoyed our chit chat with Earl as much as I have, his information will definitely be down in the box below. So you're welcome to connect with him, have a conversation with him. As you can tell, very approachable, somebody I trust absolutely implicitly. And we're pretty excited. You can also check out his article in our latest edition of the Create the Ripple magazine. There'll be a link to that as well. And of course, if you can like, share, comment, post, give us a virtual high five, those sorts of things make all the difference for those of us who are taking time to create content for you online. We do it so that you know who we are and where we are. And certainly feel free to tag somebody in this if they need to hear from Earl, and he might be able to support them by maybe relieving a little bit of stress, which frankly right now we all need a little reliever of stress. And you can catch episodes like this, both previous and incoming, on my YouTube, and all of the details will be down below. So Earl, thank you so much for joining me today. This was fun.
Welcome. Great to chat with you and get to know you a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I feel like we have a lot in common.
Stories about your grandfather and combines coming in.
You know,
Yeah, a lot of combines around Sprucefield.
I tell my dad all the time, I said, Dad, you really need to listen to my podcast and stuff, because I talk about you guys all the time. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, Dad. But you know, when you grow up and you're a homeschool kid and your parents are your best friends, it's hard not to have tremendous stories of who you are and how they've shaped you. So it was great to share space with somebody who knows them, and that was really cool for me. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. Please keep an up to date, like, share, comment, subscribe, and we will catch you guys on the flip side. Thank you.